कुलदीप।
यस सर, आप कुछ बोल रहे थे?
हाँ, मैं कुलदीप से बात कर रहा हूँ, एक सेकेंड।
सीक्वेंस वही है। Good evening, everyone. I, CA Mayank Shrivastava, welcome you all to this 2 hours virtual CP meeting organized by Jaipur branch of CIRC of ICI. Jaipur branch has always remained proactive in organizing seminars, webinars, and meetings on the topics which are always connected with what's going on in the market and industries, and that are always beneficial for the members. And in continuation of that, this virtual meeting is organized on the topic implicating CAs in criminal cases, emerging trends, and possible defenses. Today we have our speaker, Advocate Mohit Khandelwal ji, who will be guiding us on this topic and will enrich us with the emerging trends and possible defenses in case where CAs are implicated in criminal cases. Today we have also have our special guest CA PP Parikh sir, who will also be giving us a special address. First of all, I request all the participants to kindly mark your attendance by mentioning your name and membership number in Zoom chat box. So going forward, I first request Sri Anil Yadav ji, Chairman Jaipur branch, to kindly give a welcome address to all. Over to you, Anil sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayank ji. Respected PP Parikh sir, past Central Council member, my younger brother Kuldeep ji, Mayank ji, Mohit ji, and all the participants. A very good evening to all of you. I see Anil Yadav, welcome you all in today's webinars. Friends, at Jaipur branch, we are trying कि जो भी लेटेस्ट टॉपिक्स हैं, जो भी आपकी रिक्वायरमेंट है, जो भी आपके यहाँ से कुछ हमारे पास सजेशंस आती है, वी मस्ट हम उसे फॉलो करते हैं कि अब ये जो आज का जो टॉपिक्स है, हमारे बीच में मोहित खंडेलवाल जी हैं और मोहित जी बहुत डायनामिक पर्सनैलिटी है। अब जब आप सुनेंगे तब आपको पता लगेगा जो टॉपिक्स है आज का, तो आपको क्या चीजें उसके अंदर ध्यान रखनी है। प्लीज आप लोग इसे केयरफुली सुने और आप इसको बिल्कुल फॉलो भी रखें बीच के अंदर। मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूंगा कि हम लोग कई बार ऐसा होता है कि ओनली फॉर सीपी के लिए हम लोग कुछ प्रोग्राम ज्वाइन करते हैं, बट जो आज का जो हमारा वेबिनार है नॉट दो फॉर सीपी, हम सीपी के लिए प्रोग्राम नहीं कर रहे हैं, ये प्रोग्राम हमारे अवेयरनेस के लिए कर रहे हैं। जो प्रॉब्लम्स हम लोग फेस करते हैं बात के अंदर, बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स फेस करनी पड़ रही है। अभी नया कुछ एडिशंस भी कुछ आए, जीएसटी एक्ट के अंदर कुछ प्रॉब्लम, सीएससी के खिलाफ कुछ एडिशन हुए हैं, इवन इनकम टैक्स में कुछ पेनल्टीज लगी हैं, प्रोसिक्यूशन भी कोई बहुत सारे हो रहे हैं। तो उसमें कहाँ हमें कैसे हम बच सकते हैं, क्या हमें सावधानी रखनी है, वो सब उसके ऊपर हम चर्चा करेंगे। और बाकी हमारे जो पारिक साहब अब सर हमारे साथ में है, पारिक सर हमें मार्गदर्शन करेंगे कैसे क्या हम चीजें सीख सकते हैं। हमें ज्यादा समय नहीं लूंगा, मैं मयंक जी ओवर टू यू। थैंक यू सर। थैंक्स।
Thank you, Anil sir, for your address. Now, as we all know that our respected PP Parikh sir is with us. He will be giving us a special address in this meeting today. So I would like to take an opportunity, and it's my pleasure to introduce PP Parikh sir, though he don't need any introduction. PP Parikh sir is a practicing chartered accountant and senior partner at S. Bhandari and Company Chartered Accountants, having more than about 35 years of vast experience in the field of audit, taxation, and corporate advisory, etc. Parikh sir has also chaired and addressed number of workshops, seminars, and conferences on tax audit, taxation, FEMA, and other law in India as well as abroad. He has been the member of Central Council of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India from the year 2001 to 2004. He was also the Jaipur branch chairman in the early 90s. He had been the member of various committees, standing and non-standing committee of ICI. He has been the member of executive committee, examination committee, audit practice committee, committee on WTO and trade laws, international affairs committee, audit and assurance board. He has also been the director of Bank of Baroda from the year 1999 to 2006 and Andhra Bank from 2007 to 2013. He is presently the director of PNB Guilds Limited and RSM MM Limited. Parikh sir is also the trustee of Uday Hostel, who has been serving the economic weaker section of the CA students by providing them hostel facility. He has also formed a public trust to financially support the needy student with scholarship, interest, free loan up to secondary and higher secondary education, and has also recently constructed a hostel of deaf and dumb girls, which was dedicated to the public by His Excellency Governor of Rajasthan. In recognition of which service, the government of Rajasthan has bestowed Bhamasha Award to acknowledge the service rendered by Sir. P.V. Parikh sir has also trained around about in his vast experience 500 to 600 chartered accountants who are serving at various segment of the industries all across the globe. So P.P. Parikh sir has always been associated with Jaipur branch from past many years and always guided us with his experience, and we feel blessed today that he is also part of this session. Now it's my pleasure to request P.P. Parikh sir to kindly enrich us with his address. Thank you, Parikh. Thank you. Over to you, Parikh sir.
First of all, thank to Mayank for giving this elaborate introduction of mine. I am thankful to Chairman and the Secretary and the Advocate Mohit Khandelwal, who has spared his valuable time to guide us ki how to handle the change situation which government has done on the chartered accountants while discharging their professional duties. Friends, to be very honest, when I read all the changes in the act in which the responsibility or the liability casted upon the auditor is so large, which gives me a impression as if that becoming a chartered accountant is a sin. The job of chartered accountant across the globe is well defined, and we are supposed to give reasonable assurance of the affairs of the company and the disclosed results of the company. But with the change in the psychology of the people who are on the helm of affairs of the corporate or the corporate law and the other commercial acts, they think that auditor is nothing but a magician. Once he will go into the books, then it is his duty that he should find out everything. Whatever is wrong is there, whatever is error is there, whether there is a fraud, there is a suspected fraud, where there is a intentional irregularity, where there is a genuine irregularity or mistake in that. All these things was never expected from a chartered accountant. And to the best of my knowledge, it is nowhere in the world that this kind of draconian law has been imposed by the government on the chartered accountants in India. We chartered accountants are supposed to see that there is no glaring mistake and there is no apparent fraud or intentional fraud, where there are a lot of techniques and tools for the chartered accountants which has been taught to us when we pass the CA examination, and we apply our own mind and we keep on updating ourselves to detect such kind of mistakes, so the result of the company or result of the client is true and fair and meets the requirement of regulators, either income tax or GST or any other law applicable. But when you read the law, and in every law they will make this thing that chartered accountant will be penalized. There are certain clauses in which the whole firm will be penalized. This is unthinkable and unbelievable. I have not seen any law earlier in any of the countries I have never come across where there is a punishment to the whole of the firm. I don't know why. There is finding a fraud is a special act when it is the investigation is done or detailed audit is done or the task is given to that to investigate the things, then only this kind of exercises are being done. If a poor chartered accountant start doing the investigation in every audit, so I think the children or the family of the chartered accountant will be only on the roads. I personally feel that the responsibility of detecting fraud during the normal audit is much onerous duty on the chartered accountant to think and to accept by our institute. We should have objected to it. This cannot be the responsibility while discharging the duty of audit. If you want anything to be investigated, they can have some smell or some idea. They can give an idea that this particular area needs to be investigated further. but you are want the true and fair position at that particular point of time. I believe this is giving a very this is going to give a sleepless nights to various chartered accountants once if he would have done any audit of any client, and that they later on it is come on the surface that there was certain fraud and that it was not reported, or no nothing was done. So my first reaction to this kind of treatment to chartered accountant is this: give me an example of any other profession where you punish the doctor for not detecting the right disease or sickness of a patient. Any engineer, any other professional, because profession is an talent of individual person who is doing his professional duties. Giving such an onerous punishment to a chartered accountant for not detecting the fraud and putting him to jail or something like that, it is beyond my comprehension. I since beginning, various authorities and audit are saying that auditors are only supposed to give true and fair, and in true and fair, when you are not giving true and correct. So that was the subject, that was the word chosen after a lot of deliberation by our forefathers. Now coming to this, even true and fair, and if then there is a fraud, you would be penalized, punished, or jailed also. This kind of thing, I think it is such a such a draconian law which has been imposed on the auditors at the same time. And secondly, they have reduced the time period of reporting the audit report and expect them to do everything in such a meticulous thing and with the suspicion in every transaction. Because if you have to investigate a fraud, you will have to suspect a lot of things on every action of the management. And if you think starting with that concept, because once we go for audit, we don't go with that negative thought that there is something mistake, something fraud is there, unless or until there are certain evidences directly or indirectly, which appears during our routine auditing thing, and seeing the things that there is something mischievously wrong, which needs to be investigated. And as per our auditing standards and the guidance issued by the institute from time to time, we go into detail and try to find out if there is any fraud, so try to report that in the auditor's report. Now what the law has emerged and wants an auditor not to do the function of a policing. Now they want that every time you go and suspect and you unnecessarily or necessarily caught the wrongdoing and then give into report. I think that is very unjust to the profession at large. This expectation of the society, government, or the shareholder is beyond my imagination. I just mentioned earlier also that none of the profession has been put to this kind of hard reporting, whether if the doctor treats a patient and if he dies because of wrong diagnosis or something like that, there is no punishment for the jail or something like this. If an engineer builds a bridge, if it is collapsed because of that, because of technical reason, even then there is no chances of there is no punishment. Criminal liabilities are there. My only submission to the institute and to the branch and the authorities who are the persons who are occupying the chair in the profession, that we should place our point of view to the government and bring the bring the amendment in this clause where such an onerous and unexpected responsibility and liability and accountability has been put in on the auditors. You see there, when the two lawyers argue in a court, one lawyer loses, one lawyer wins, and at times the wrong is also wins. But is there any liability of a lawyer if he loses a case? Because in spite of the fact that that is what the 100% wrong, there is no punishment to them. Why only the chartered accountants? This is nothing but weakness of the leadership in the institute, I should say, because the main reason for this is this: ki most of our chartered accountants are not politically active, and when the rule makers are generally politicians, where the advocates are in good numbers, bureaucrats are in good numbers, And I will not like to say those words for the politician because somebody can show me. But most of the gunds who are having the muscle power in them, they become the leader and they form the law. So my only suggestion to youngsters and the elders, chartered accountant, is this: we should raise our voice. We should not come to the pressure of the institute. We should give the limitations to them, ki what is possible, what is not possible. Within a limited time, we go into a lot of transactions. We work for 12 to 14 hours when we finalize the accounts, and that too without any rest and proper compensation. Also, I must say it very clearly that on the part of compensation, irrespective of the size of unit or size of company or size of complicated transaction, compensation, because of this competition amongst the members, it is such a meager that at times you find ki why I have done chartered accountancy. And to be very frank, I have done LLB, so at times I think I should go into LLB practice now rather than sticking to this only practice, because this is not rather rewarding monetarily or nor more enjoy the respect what it used to have when we did it in 80s when we were chartered accountants. So the most my expectations are from the youngsters, and I am very happy to see that branch is full of young gentlemen who are who are managing the affairs of the firm and doing very good job. But at the same time, the only caution what I would like to tell to youngsters and my colleague chartered accountants is this situation has come only because we have compromised on our principles. On the one hand, if I criticize this attitude of the government, on the other side, I will be excused for my saying the blunt truth that few of our people have compromised their independence for the reason of money making or something else, which has damaged the profession to such an extent that government or the I should say people at large has lost the confidence in the chartered accountancy. If we take the certificate of practice and intends to work as a chartered accountant, we should have set high standards. We should have exemplary lifestyle, and we should teach our article students and the whosoever persons comes in your contract to be true and fair in his actions, in his behavior, and his maintenance of accounts and disclosing the results. The anything, if I always quote one thing, that if you are wearing a white shirt and if there is a one spot of ink, the thing which will be highlighted would be that spot of ink, not the shirt, beautiful shirt. So few of our colleagues who becomes advisor, guide, wealth manager, this and that to the particular client and along with the audit, and when that thing is not achieved, so they play with it. There are number of cases. I will not like to name any individual because it would be not fair on my part to highlight few. But what I want to tell is this, ki we should give our member the lesson of moral also, the lesson of integrity also, and the lesson of is countering the pressures if it comes. This if it is not there, I can tell you that profession has gone to down already. It would be worst in time to come. So the lesson I would like to tell to the youngsters, because you all are very young, jo bhi photos whatever is coming on the screen, all are young, and I think I am equivalent to two of you each of the age. I can only say that to survive, you will have to up your standards in discharging your duties as an auditor. But at the same time, for the fault of some minimal or minor people, making the law of sending to jail and this thing is unthinkable. In no profession, in no country, that kind of provisions are there to the best of my knowledge. And I am sure the kind of webinar or other conferences when it will take place, I think we would be able to create some momentum to press the government to take this provision back and allow the auditors to discharge their professional duties. And at the same time, I again tell my colleague chartered accountants, that if you want to speak with the loud and if you want to agitate, you should be honest, courageous, and at the same time not the wrongdoers. If you are a wrongdoers, you are morally weak, and once a man is morally weak, he cannot raise the voice. With these words, I once again thank the branch for giving me this chance to start this topic, and I am very happy that Mohit Khandelwal is there, who's going to guide us in a big way to how to handle this situation, if whatever has happened or whatever has come. With these words, I once again thank you all, and thank you all the participants who are hearing me. Thank you. Branch Chairman, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your address. I hope it will guide all the members and it will help them. As you have rightly said, that these days expectations are rising day by day from the auditors. And earlier we were used to say that we are not a bloodhound, but in these days the manner in which the law is getting draconian day by day, we are also being expected to be a bloodhound also. So moving forward, now we will move forward to the our speaker, Mohit Khandelwal ji. But before proceeding, I would like to introduce our speaker to all the participants today. Advocate Mohit Khandelwal ji is a practicing advocate and having extensive experience in the litigation matter relating to commercial laws, consumer laws, and economic offenses. He has successfully represented many clients, including several listed companies, in various matters before the Rajasthan High Court, Honorable Bombay High Court, State Consumer Commission, ITAT, NCLT, and other commercial courts. He is also engaged in corporate advisory and drafting of agreements and deeds. Mr. Khandelwal on many occasions has also challenged the constitutional validity of various provisions pertaining to the Goods and Service Tax Act 2017, Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection Act 2015 before the Honorable Rajasthan High Court. Mohit Khandelwal ji has also many landmark judgments against his name. Mr. Khandelwal is also a gold medalist in BA LLB honors from National Law University, Punjab, and he is also a company secretary. So with that introduction, I may now request Advocate Mohit Khandelwal ji to kindly guide us with this topic and enrich us with the emerging trend and possible defenses in cases where chartered accountants are implicated in criminal cases. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Am I audible? Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayank sir, for such a beautiful introduction. First of all, I recognize the esteemed presence of Parikh sir amongst us, and I welcome Parikh sir for being with us on this occasion. I thank Anil Yadav sir and Kuldeep Gupta sir and all other office bearers in the branch of ICAI Jaipur, and thank them for inviting me on this occasion. So in furtherance of what Parikh sir has highlighted, he has highlighted very good points which are required to be considered and deliberated upon during this lecture which we are going to have. What he has pointed out is that a professional is merely applying his knowledge to the best of his capability and ability. So during that process, if something goes wrong, can that attract the criminal provision or criminal liability is something which is to be understood here. So as a person who deals with law, I think that for understanding this, I'll take you through the provisions of IPC, I'll take you through provisions of CRPC, and we'll talk about the liabilities under the emerging GST norms. And also we have the income tax laws which already existed previously also. So as far as the liability is concerned, under the law, we recognize the concept of negligence. Then we talk about rashness or gross negligence. Then there's a stand above that is called willful misconduct, or which may also amount to fraud. So as far as the law is concerned, the criminal liability is only undertaken or attracted in the case when we are doing a willful misconduct or there's a gross negligence which involves the malefic intent. So whenever we talk about implicating any professional into criminal cases, what the authority has to implicate or allegate is that particular professional was having a malefic intent, and with this malefic intent, he has done something which he was not supposed to do, or he has not done something which he was supposed to do. So act or omission of any professional which was done malafidely with the intent to benefit himself or his client can attract the criminal liability. However, let me tell you that in the normal circumstance, if we have done some negligent act which is not with the malevolent intent, in that case, the criminal liability may not be attracted as per the settled principle. So in this lecture, I'll be talking on two important aspects. I've divided the entire presentation in two parts. In the first part, I'll be talking about the Goods and Service Tax Act, wherein we'll discuss how the chartered accountants and other professionals are being implicated under the Goods and Service Tax Act, and what are the criminal procedures under the Goods and Service Tax Act. And in the second part, I'll specifically deal with what Parikh sir said, that what is the limitation of liability of the auditor or a chartered accountant when he's performing his duty. So that has been beautifully explained by several high courts and Honorable Supreme Court in several of its judgments. So we'll be talking about those judgments to understand what we should do and what we should do to ensure that we protect ourselves from any criminal liability which may arise due to wrong conduct of the client. So that's the purpose of this presentation, which I'll be presenting for you. So a chartered accountant is a very dynamic person who is not just engaged in auditing. He is also involved in certifying several documents, supervising the filing of returns on the behalf of the client. And I can say chartered accountant is one of the essential backbone of the entire financial structure which we have in the country. So when someone has been given such important duty, then the law believes that his duty should also come with the liability. But the issue is liability to what extent is something which is important to be understood. So to start with this topic, I'll share the presentation before you. I think the presentation is visible to you all. So what we want the courts to say and the authorities to comply is something which is recently coming from Honorable Punjab Haryana High Court. The judgment which you see on the screen is Akhil Krishnan Maggu versus Deputy Director, in which while detailing several other aspects, the Honorable Punjab Haryana High Court observed that arrest of chartered accountants or advocates who have filed returns or otherwise assisted in business but are not beneficiary or part of fraud merely on the basis of statement without any corroborative evidence linking the professional with alleged offense should be avoided. So the Honorable Court has duly understood that if a professional is performing his duties, in that case, he should not be implicated very randomly. He should only be implicated in the allegations of fraud when the gross misconduct is very evident and it is duly corroborated by the evidences available on record. Otherwise, if you implicate any chartered accountant or advocate for any criminal liability, then it is a stigmatic approach, which ultimately gives a stigma to that person, which carries not just to a particular person, but to the entire professional community. So the Honorable High Court rightly observed that it should not be the normal course of routine. But before going on that aspect, let me come to Goods and Service Tax Act. So I think many professionals have already argued that on various forums, and it has also been argued before the honorable courts also, that under the Goods and Service Tax Act, how can you enforce the criminal liability or make a demand when the assessment is yet to be done? You have not right now assessed the returns filed by the person. The demand is yet to be made. The assessment order is yet to be finalized. The appeal is yet to be filed. So before doing all these things, how can you directly enforce your powers? How can Director General of DST Intelligence enforce their powers and even arrest a person, though the liability of taxes is yet to be finalized? So that has been a major cause of discussion over several platforms in past several years since the GST has been incorporated. So the answer lies in what we'll be discussing in this particular aspect. Under the GST, we see that there are two kinds of provisions. First are the assessment proceedings, wherein you file the return, then there's a self-assessment being done at the time of filing of return. Subsequently, the department may go for scrutiny and other assessment orders may be passed. And after finalizing the assessment order, the department can raise the demand. It may be under Section 73 or Section 74, as the case may be. But in that case, only after passing a reasonable order and after giving a reasonable opportunity of being hearing to the assessee, the department is passing the assessment order. But that is not the case in the criminal proceeding. Without seeking adequate justification from the assessee or the professional, how can you directly arrest them or impose criminal liability on them is a major cause of concern. So now, as far as the criminal proceedings are concerned, under the GST Act, the powers to inspect, search and seize are given under Section 67 and 68. And we see that the commissioners, joint commissioner, deputy commissioners have been exercising their powers under these two sections only while they are conducting inspections on the premises or on the vehicles also. So, and now apart from the right to inspect and search, they've also been given to power to arrest. That is the major lacuna or draconic powers which have been given to them under section 69 of the GST Act, which is being regularly used by the department, and they're not just arresting the assessees, but there have been incidents when they have been arresting the chartered accountants and other professionals. So we need to discuss regarding section 69, which is a major cause of concern. Sorry. As far as the punishments are concerned, the punishments are given under section 132 of the GST Act, which talks about the offences which are committed under the GST Act. And these offences have been divided in two categories. The first category is of the offences which are non-bailable and which are cognizable. The second category are of the offences which are bailable and non-cognizable. I believe that all of us are truly aware of what is bailable offence and what is non-bailable offence. And I'll just clarify regarding the cognizable and non-cognizable offences, because that may be required at some stage. So let me tell you what are cognizable offences. These are the terms which are related to criminal laws. So cognizable offences are those offences in which the investigating agency or the inquiring agency, for example, police in the investigation, or the GST officials in the case of inquiry under section 67 and 69, they have the direct power to arrest or to conduct the investigation. Such powers do not exist in the case of non-cognizable offences. In the case of non-cognizable offences, the authorities are required to first of all take the consent of the court, and only thereafter, when they receive the warrants from the court or the orders from the court, then they can go ahead with the arrest or other investigation requirements. So now let's talk about the cognizable offences. So recently the powers are being exercised by the department under section 69, wherein they are alleging the chartered accountants and other assessees for the offences under section 32(1)(a), B, C, D. What are these majorly? First of all, the issue is regarding when you have not generated the invoice, but the goods have been supplied. The purpose is to evade the taxes. Secondly, when the goods have not been supplied, but the invoice have been generated. So it's a forged invoice, basically. Third one is when you have availed the wrongful ITC with a malignant intent. And the fourth category, when you fail to deposit the tax which you have collected from the other party. So all these four categories, when the limit of evasion or the taxable amount exceeds beyond 5 crore rupees, in that case it becomes cognizable and non-bailable offence. So as far as the second category is concerned, which is below 5 crore and above 2 crore, it is a bailable offence. So the major cause of concern comes in when the allegations are above 5 crore and we are being implicated in these four provisions. But now I have already told you regarding this that the other powers of arrest are given under section 69. Section 69 puts three essential conditions which must exist. The first one is that the powers can be exercised by the commissioner or and the person authorized by that person. The second one is that a person who is arresting any assessee or a professional, he must have a reason to believe. Reason to believe is a very general term, but it has a very far-reaching legal consequences. So reason to believe is the check which is given under section 69, and the conduct of the officer would be governed by the entire check in the form of reason to believe. The last thing which is required to be done is that the arrested person must be communicated with the grounds of his arrest. He must be told about the reasons of his arrest, why he's being arrested and what offense he has committed. Now the debate was that when the assessment has yet not been done, how can I be implicated for criminal proceedings? Because if the suppose ultimately assessment says that I have not committed any offense and I have not committed any fault under GST, how can today I be arrested or put to trial? So this debate went to several courts, and the reason why it went was because in the previous regime, in the service tax regime, I think all of you must be aware of this fact, that under the service tax regime, the law was that till the time the assessment is not done, the provisions of arrest or penal penalty cannot be imposed. In that regard, the landmark judgment was Make My Trip versus Union of India, which was delivered by the High Court, but subsequently the SLP was dismissed by the Honorable Supreme Court against that order, and the order was upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court. So in that case, it was settled that under the service tax regime, you may see the relevant extract of the judgment on the screen also, which says that agency like DGCEI and cannot without any SCN or inquiry straight away go and make an arrest merely on suspicion or evasion of service tax or failure to deposit service tax that has been collected. So that is our concern. that today whatever you are doing is merely out of suspicion. Actual assessment is yet to be done. Actual liability is yet to be determined. So can on the merely basis of suspicion, can you move ahead? So under the service tax regime, the honorable court said no, it cannot be done. First of all, do the assessment. If after assessment it is found that he has committed any fault and the penalties are required to be imposed, only in that case the criminal proceedings can be initiated, otherwise not. So that was the position which was existing under the service tax regime. But the same was not taken well in the GST regime. Now, if you see, these are apart from the make my trip judgment, there are 3 other judgments which have come from various other high courts, in which the honorable high courts have said that arrest without assessment is wrong. The recent one is coming from the Honorable Punjab and High Court, Akhil Krishan Maggu versus Deputy Director. So in this case, the Honorable High Court in 2019 said that you cannot go ahead with the criminal proceedings and under the GST also till the time the assessment is not done. But the issue was that there are other judgments also on this point. The judgments are Vimal Yashwantgiri Goswami versus State of Gujarat, which recently came, and the most important judgment is PV Ramana Reddy versus Union of India. I think I'm able to connect with you. Let me just summarize it for you. That in the case of PV Ramana Reddy, the Honorable Telangana High Court passed a very important order and said that proceedings under Section 69 and 132, I mean that the criminal proceedings under the GST Act are independent proceedings in comparison to the assessment being done. So the assessment proceedings under Section 61 and 73-74 and the criminal proceedings under Section 69 and 132 are independent to each other. They cannot be clubbed together and they are not dependent on each other. So criminal proceedings can continue at its own pace despite of the assessment being done or not being done. So this judgment was passed by the Honorable Telangana High Court. So if you see this judgment, it says to say that prosecution can be launched only after completion of the assessment goes contrary to Section 132 of the CGST Act. The list of offences included in subsection 1 of 132 have no correlation with assessment. Issue of invoices or bills without supply of goods and availing ITC by using such invoices are made offences under the GST Act. The prosecution of these offences do not depend upon the completion of assessment. So, sir, if you understand in simplest terms, Honorable Court has said कि अगर आपने कोई offence किया है, तो we will not wait to the extent of assessment. हम आपको आज ही उसके लिए charge करेंगे, आपके against हम offence initiate करेंगे and will arrest you and then subsequently आपको हम trial के लिए भेज देंगे. So this has been clarified by Honorable Telangana High Court. और इसके against जो Supreme Court ने SLP गई, the Honorable Supreme Court dismissed the SLP. So this is the law which clearly says that the arrest can be done even without assessment. Now, if I have to tell you the recent position of law, तो सर ये Supreme Court का एक recent interim order आया है, which is to be seen. That is Union of India versus Sapna Jain. अब इसमें Supreme Court ने क्या कहा? What happened? I told you that there were 2 conflicting opinions. One came from Honorable Punjab High Court and also from Madras High Court, in which the Honorable High Court said that there cannot be criminal proceedings without assessment under the GST. But on the contrary, Telangana High Court said that it can be. They are independent proceedings and they can go simultaneously. And that was upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court by dismissing the SLP. So all these issues went together before the Honorable Supreme Court in several SLPs. And this is the interim order which has been passed by the Honorable Supreme Court. Just to clarify the aspect, I'll read that interim order, which will bring clarity to us understanding the present position of law. So the Honorable Supreme Court said, however, we make it clear. They issued the notices, and after issuing the notices, they also passed the interim order which said, however, we make it clear that the High Court, while entertaining such request in future, will keep in mind that this court by order dated 27/5/2019 passed the SLP criminal number 4430/2019. This is the SLP filed against the judgment of Telangana High Court, wherein they have held that simultaneous proceedings can continue. So the Honorable Supreme Court said, had dismissed the special leave petition filed against the judgment and the order of Telangana High Court in similar matter, wherein the High Court of Telangana has taken a view contrary to what has been held by the High Court in present case. Beyond the above, we do not consider it necessary to observe anything further. The present matter, along with other connected matters, be listed along before a bench of 3 judges. So the Honorable Supreme Court has referred the entire issue to the 3-judge bench. The issue which has been to the Honorable Supreme Court 3-judge bench is that can you initiate criminal proceedings which also involve powers of arrest without assessment. Telangana High Court said yes. Supreme Court dismissed the SLP. So it's an implied yes from the Supreme Court. But the matter has been referred to the Honorable Three-Judge Bench, and the finding is yet to come. So as of now, we see that the position of law is ambiguous, unsettled. So we have to see in future whether the Honorable Supreme Court will allow it or not. Recently, to the best of my knowledge, there's also judgment which came just last week, I believe, in which it was held that if you're asking the assessee to deposit the due amount of tax at the time of inspection or search, in that case, such demand of money is invalid because that is done in a coercive manner. अगर आप किसी घर पे जाएंगे, ऑफिस में जाएंगे, उनको कहेंगे हम आपको अरेस्ट करेंगे या फिर आप ये डिमांड 1 करोड़ रुपए की जमा कराइए, तो वो एक प्रेशर में आके अरेस्ट से बचने के लिए शायद वो डिमांड जमा करा भी दे, बट क्या ये वैलिड है? High Court said it is not a good conduct. You cannot ask such a person to deposit the money on the same day because such deposition is merely out of coercive conduct. Because आप डिपार्टमेंट के ऑफिशियल्स अपने पावर्स का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, you have been given wide powers under the law. अगर आप उस पावर्स को मिसयूज करके किसी को प्रेशराइज करते हैं, may it be professional, may it be SSC, in that case that is wrong. So that is a recent finding which has come from the Supreme Court, which has come from the High Court, I must correct. So what I'm trying to tell you by all these is that we need to understand that the powers which have been given to them may be draconic, and the legislature is right now developing on these laws regarding the aspect. अब मैं इससे पहले एक जो जजमेंट है which Honorable Gujarat High Court said, ये गुजरात हाई कोर्ट बहुत लैंडमार्क जजमेंट आया है अभी, विमल यशवंत गिरी गोस्वामी. आई वुड लाइक टू डिस्कस दैट विद यू ऑल. ये आपको बहुत क्लैरिटी लेके आएगा. आई बिलीव आप लोगों ने क्रिमिनल प्रोसीडिंग्स के बारे में सुना होगा, हाउ इट इज डन, एफआईआर के बारे में सुना होगा, बट to expand your knowledge, because you're also required to advise the clients on all these things. So I just want to give you a brief insight of how criminal proceedings are done. How criminal proceedings in FIR is different from what is done under the GST Act. ये आपकी बहुत, it will be very useful for you. आपने सुना होगा that in the case of FIR, police lodges the FIR and then police investigates. Police investigates the matter. Police may call all the parties. Complainant के statement record करेगी police. Accused से police पूछताछ कर सकती है. But under the Constitution, we have a right of not being self-incriminated. We cannot, the police officials cannot ask us to give self-incriminatory evidence. खुद के खिलाफ मुझे सबूत देने के लिए आप लॉ में फोर्स नहीं कर सकते. That is mentioned under the Constitution itself. Article 20 subsection subclause 3 of the Constitution says that a person cannot be forced to give self-incriminatory evidences. So ये criminal proceedings में होता है कि पुलिस जनरली accused से पूछताछ नोट बनाती है, but his statements are not recorded. In any case, whatever investigation is done by the police from the accused or otherwise is not admissible before the court in any case, and वो सारे witness को कोर्ट के सामने जाना पड़ेगा and personally examine होना पड़ेगा. In that case only it would be admissible. ठीक है सर, तो यहाँ तक तो क्रिमिनल प्रोसीडिंग्स की बात रही इन द केस ऑफ नॉर्मल एफआईआर, बट ऐसा जीएसटी में नहीं होता. इन द केस ऑफ जीएसटी द एंटायर प्रोसीजर इज वेरी डिफरेंट. व्हाट हैपेंस इन जीएसटी, in the case of GST prosecution or GST arrest, no FIR is lodged. 132 के punishments, 132 के offenses के लिए there is no need to register the FIR because the inquiry is being done by the officials of department who are not the police officials. So जैसे normal FIR arrest होती है, दर्ज होती है CRPC में, there is no need to lodge similar FIR in the case of GST. The only thing is that the inspector or the commissioner may inquire, and during the inquiry he finds that the person is committing any offense. In that case he can arrest that person. So without FIR he can be arrested. The second thing was regarding self-incriminatory evidence. जैसा कि मैंने कहा कि पुलिस के सामने अगर accused के statement हो भी जाए तो वो admissible नहीं होंगे. But in the case of GST investigation and inquiry, whatever statements the assessee gives or any of the accused gives, that is admissible in evidence. I make clear to you that जो भी assessee वहां पे कहेगा, जो भी statements उनके record हो रहे हैं, that is taken on record under section 60, read with section 135, and that is admissible in evidence, and that can be read against the accused itself. तो वो during the trial accused के खिलाफ पढ़ा जा सकता है. अब सर ऐसा क्यों होता है? अब आप कहोगे what about article 20 subclause 3? जब article 20 subclause 3 constitution में कहता है कि नहीं, आप accused को उसके खिलाफ evidence देने के लिए नहीं कह सकते, तो फिर ये GST में क्यों? तो this has been very well explained by the Honorable Gujarat High Court in this case. गुजरात हाईकोर्ट ने कहा इन द सिंपलेस्ट ऑफ टर्म, इन द सिंपलेस्ट लैंग्वेज इफ आई एक्सप्लेन टू यू, गुजरात हाईकोर्ट ने कहा कि व्हाटएवर द जीएसटी ऑफिसर्स आर डूइंग, दे आर नॉट इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग, दे आर मेयरली कंडक्टिंग अ प्रिलिमिनरी इंक्वायरी कि क्या कोई वायलेशन हुआ है क्या। अगर वायलेशन उनको मिलता है तो आफ्टर रिकॉर्डिंग द एंटायर वायलेशंस दे विल फाइल अ कंप्लेंट अगेंस्ट द ऑफेंडर्स बिफोर द मजिस्ट्रेट कोर्ट। तो जब तक कंप्लेंट फाइल नहीं हुई तब तक इट कैन नॉट बी सेड दैट the someone has been made accused. So because of this, whatever they are doing is they are merely inquiring and not investigating. So inquiry के दौरान they can record the statements of the accused also, और वो statement admissible होंगे। But actual trial start होगा जब वो complaint file करेंगे before the magistrate court. So the honorable Gujarat High Court clearly explained कि जो भी inquiring officer कर रहा है during the inquiry, that is valid, that is a valid thing, and article 20 subclause 3 would not be accepted in that case. ये गुजरात हाईकोर्ट ने बहुत क्लियरली कर दिया क्लियर। अब सेकंड पॉइंट इज कि आज मेरे खिलाफ एफआईआर लॉन्च होती है तो अक्यूज कैन गेट द कॉपी ऑफ द एफआईआर, उसको पता लग जाए मेरे खिलाफ क्या एलिगेशन है, बिकॉज एफआईआर हैज टू मेंशन व्हाट आर द एलिगेशंस अगेंस्ट द अक्यूज्ड, बट दैट इज नॉट द केस इन द केस ऑफ जीएसटी। आधे टाइम तो मुझे पता नहीं होता व्हाट हैव आई डन, बिकॉज डिपार्टमेंट के ऑफिसर्स दे आर एक्टिंग वेरी एग्रेसिवली, वो मुझे कभी बताएंगे नहीं व्हाट हैव आई डन, they'll just keep roaming things around and they'll just keep hitting around the bushes, because their ultimate intent is to pressurize and recover in normal circumstance. It may not be otherwise also, but I mean to say that they are not supposed to show you the FIR. कोई FIR lodge नहीं होती, they are not supposed to give you any written clarification कि आपके against क्या allegation है. This is not the requirement of law. The only requirement is कि जब when the inspector or the commissioner arrest a person, after arresting a person he'll put that person before the magistrate. Magistrate के सामने you are supposed to put that person within 24 hours, and while presenting that person before the magistrate you will file arrest memo. अब अरेस्ट मेमो भी गुजरात हाईकोर्ट ने बहुत अच्छी तरह समझाया कि अरेस्ट मेमो जब आप प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं तो अरेस्ट मेमो में यू हैव टू गिव डिटेल्ड इंफॉर्मेशन रिगार्डिंग द एलिगेशंस लेवल्ड अगेंस्ट दैट पर्सन एंड व्हाई ही हैज बीन अरेस्टेड, बिकॉज जैसे मैंने कहा था सेक्शन 69 सेज दैट देयर मस्ट बी रीजन टू बिलीव with the commissioner before arresting any person. So क्या reasons commissioner को लगे या joint commissioner को लगे या deputy commissioner को लगे before arresting any person should be mentioned in arrest memo. That arrest memo is filed before the magistrate court and I can obtain the copy of the arrest memo later to understand what are the allegations against me. Before that, I have no legal right to seek any written justification as to what allegations exist against me. This is something which exists right now and this is the position of law which exists. So मैं आपको समझा रहा था कैसे normal criminal proceedings जो हम एफआईआर में देखता है, that is different from what we see in the GST regime. In the GST regime, it's a complaint regime wherein without lodging the FIR, the inspector can exercise the powers under section 69 and they can arrest a person if he is found to be alleged in any offense under section 132. I believe I'm clear to this aspect to all. Sir, I believe I'm making sense to all of you. If you have any query regarding this point, I can clarify that at very outset, sir. Anyone, if there is any query regarding this point, sir, I can very well clarify. Also, क्योंकि we are talking about criminal laws, so मैं आपको criminal law में कुछ और चीजें बताता हूँ, which is very interesting to understand. In criminal law, there is a very landmark judgment which came from the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Radheshyam Kejriwal. आपने शायद सुना भी होगा, Radheshyam Kejriwal is a very landmark judgment which came for customs, और वो which is followed widely in customs also, excise also, and now even in GST. In Radheshyam Kejriwal, the point which went to the Honorable Supreme Court was that, for example, in the assessment proceedings, I have been exonerated. For example, in the customs assessment was done, and I was exonerated, or I may be exonerated by SESTET. At the level of appeal, I was exonerated. Exonerated, I mean that all the charges against me were found to be false, and no demand was made by me against me by the department. So the issue which went before the Honorable Supreme Court was that whether exoneration in the departmental proceedings or the adjudication proceedings would be a sufficient ground for not initiating criminal proceedings or dropping down the criminal proceedings. Honorable Supreme Court laid down detailed guidelines and said criminal proceedings and adjudication proceedings under customs, excise, and now GST are different altogether. They go in different directions, but the Honorable Supreme Court said that if in the assessment proceedings someone has been found not guilty on merits of the allegation, in that case, continuing the criminal proceedings on the same sort of facts is wrong. अगर मेरे खिलाफ डिपार्टमेंट के सेस्टेट ने मान लिया that I have not committed any violation under the customs law and I have duly abided by all the provisions of the Customs Act and I have duly paid the custom duty also. But can in that case I be tried by the criminal court for the offense under Customs Act? Honorable Supreme Court said no. अगर merit पे exoneration हुआ है, तो in that case such person should not be allowed to face the criminal trial. But if the exoneration is on technical grounds, अगर technical grounds पे किसी को छोड़ा है, in that case the criminal proceedings can continue, because merely giving technical benefit in civil proceedings cannot be a ground to seek acquittal in criminal proceeding. So this principle is still applied in the GST regime also, which you will see subsequently. Because आज की stage में क्या हो रहा है sir? Trials are yet to start. The most of the cases are at the pre-charge stage. अभी charge frame होना बाकी है, charge के बयान हो रहे हैं, and the assessments are yet to be done. Subsequently, we'll see there would be a conflict, because in the assessment, department may find that no, there is no violation of GST Act and they have rightly deposited the amount. अगर ऐसा होता है, तो क्या मेरे खिलाफ trial continue होगा? That is something which is yet to be seen. But if you apply Radheshyam Kejriwal principle, उसके according नहीं होगा, because Radheshyam Kejriwal principle was very clear given by the Honorable Supreme Court. And if we abide by the principle, and that is bound to be applied in GST also, in that case, if the exoneration in the departmental proceedings is on merits, in that case, criminal proceedings cannot continue. That's important aspect regarding the criminal proceedings and civil proceedings going simultaneously. Now let's talk about implication of chartered accountants. Now, sir, what is cheating or fraud? I know that all of you must be knowing what is cheating and fraud, but just to refresh your memories, let me tell it to you in simplest term. What is fraud? Fraud basically is you're asking the other person to do something or not to do something which he was otherwise supposed to do or not to do, and that is done with the intent to defraud that person. And all these things are done for your own benefit. If you see 420 IPC, it says, if you are asking someone to, if there's an act or omission which is with the malevolent intent, with the intent to cause unlawful gain to myself and unlawful gain to other party, unlawful loss to other party, in that case it is cheating. All the professionals, including the advocates, chartered accountants, company secretaries, they always argue that if my client has committed any fraud or my client has committed any non-compliance amounting to prosecution, how can I be implicated? Because I am not the beneficiary. अगर client ने suppose 5 crore rupees की ITC wrongful availment कर लिया, so that benefit has gone to the client. The benefit never came to me. I am not the beneficiary. So if I am not the beneficiary, how can I be liable for fraud? This is the major argument which every professional would give. But sir, let me bring a cause of question, basically a cause of concern on this point, which comes under the various provisions of IPC, which can be in the form of section 33, 34, 109 and 120B. Let me start with 120B, criminal conspiracy. What is criminal conspiracy? We all know what is criminal conspiracy in simplest term. And if we see, criminal conspiracy means an agreement between two or more persons to do or cause to do any illegal act, or an act which is not illegal by illegal means. So if 2 or 3 people or 4 people are coming together and doing any illegal act, in that case it can be said that all of them have conspired together. This is a conspiracy. So sir, होता क्या है कि in the case of conspiracy, the question is not regarding who is the ultimate beneficiary. The question is regarding your culpable mental state in being involved in commission of that crime. Now, what department says when they arrest any chartered accountant or a company secretary or an advocate, at the case maybe, it says that though the beneficiary is that particular SSC or group of SSCs, but the chartered accountant knew that they are filing it wrongly or they are revealing wrong ITC, and he was a part of this entire conspiracy, either impliedly or explicitly. Though the chartered accountant has not gained any benefit, but since he knew about all these things, his knowledge of criminal offense and being active participant in that attracts 120B. So in most of the cases, if we see that chartered accountants, professionals and other people, apart from businessmen, they're generally attracted because of criminal conspiracy allegation against them. Or agar criminal conspiracy का allegation है, so in that case I'm equally liable with those other persons also. जितनी liability उनकी है उतनी liability मेरी भी रहेगी, though I am not the beneficiary. So we should always keep in mind regarding the aspect of criminal conspiracy that I should not be involved in criminal conspiracy in any manner. In the second part of our today's discussion, we'll be talking about how to avoid our involvement in the offense and how to segregate ourselves from any offense if it is committed. We'll be talking about that. But before going on that, I'm just telling you how we can be implicated in this. So one is 120B, second is abatement. Section 109 of IPC talks about abatement. What is abatement? That you basically ask some other person to do the crime. You're not doing it directly, but you are supporting the other person to do it, or you are abating him to do it. In any case, if you're asking some other person to commit the crime, then you are equally liable for it. That comes under section 109 of IPC. The third one is the common object. That is section 34. It is the concept of joint liability of the common object or common offense. So in this case, if there is a common intention or object between the parties, and the entire wrongful transaction is done with the common object, then in that case, all the parties would be equally liable. For example, I say that duty of chartered accountant is merely restricted to filing the returns, but the details for filing the returns have been wrongly provided by the assessee. Assessee and his other advisors, they've prepared wrong documentations, and they are willing to file the wrongful returns on the basis of that wrongful documentation. So अगर wrongful documentation है and chartered accountant comes to know about it and he still files it, then we can say that there is a common intention or common knowledge. So in the case of common intention and common knowledge, chartered accountant is equally liable with those assessees and other persons involved with them. So in all the three cases, which may be criminal conspiracy, abatement, or common intention, or criminal intention, the chartered accountant or any other professional can be implicated for commission of offense along with the other accused persons, though I am not the beneficiary. So we should always keep these things in mind, and we should ensure that whatever we do, we should never come in pressure of our client while performing our duties. We should always ensure that we take adequate safeguards to protect our right at least. The client may be doing wrong at times. If we see the practical aspect, at times the client may be doing wrong, and we have told him, but he still is continuing with the same. In that case, we should ensure that at least we protect ourselves. Let him suffer the consequences for his wrongful conduct, but we should secure our conduct. We should secure that we are not involved with that client subsequently, because since he is your client, the department would come to you also. In that case, you should have sufficient documentation with you to at least satisfy the department that, see, I am not involved in this. I am not the beneficiary. I have already intimated my client regarding the wrongful conduct, and if he is not correcting it, that is not on me. I'm just doing my professional duties. I've discharged that very adequately and correctly. So kindly don't involve me in all these things. And generally, if we think that it would be accepted also, because the approach of the courts also have been the same, that the courts have always considered that the professionals are discharging their duties in the professional manner. And if that is done in professional manner, then they cannot be held liable for the wrongful conduct or the illegal conduct of the client. And they should not be made to suffer for the same. So this is the first part which I was supposed to talk about. Now let me come to the second aspect regarding what a chartered accountant should do and he should not do. Do's and don'ts for a chartered accountant. That is something which is very important to ensure ourselves safe, to make sure that we remain safe and we are not implicated in any harassment or abuse if that comes at the later stage. So what is to be done? Let's keep these important points in mind. First one is the appointment letter. Though I am not the correct person to guide on these points to you, because you are well aware of all these things, you are the experts of your field. But just to make comprehensively before you, just to present it comprehensively before you, I am just refreshing your memories regarding the requirements. Though I believe that you are already aware of all these things and you are duly complying with this also. But just to give the aspect of criminal law, I'm just telling you how these documents can be helpful for you at the later stage. Even at the stage of trial also, if you go to trial subsequently, if in any case. So the first one is the appointment letter. So what is appointment letter? If you have been engaged by a particular client to do particular things, then you should always seek engagement letter or appointment letter from that client, specifying your duties, that what you are supposed to do, and your reservations also, that what you would not be doing, or what is beyond your scope of work. So the scope of work should be very clearly defined. So subsequently, if you have been asked to ensure GST compliances and you are showing GST compliance of a particular person and he defaults in income tax compliances and he commits an offense under the Income Tax Act, in that case, if the authorities come to you that you are the advisor of that person and you are also liable, you should always have a document in form of appointment letter or engagement letter to tell them that, see, my liability is merely restricted to GST compliances. Don't drag me into this. I have not been involved in this thing and I am not liable for this. Let the client see it or his advisor see it. I am not liable for this. Similarly, whatever scope of work you are doing, it should be very well crystallized and defined in your engagement letter and appointment letter. And always get that appointment letter signed from the client. Either it should come on your mail, or if not on mail, then it should be a signed document bearing the official seal of the client, if it's a company or otherwise. And it should be authenticated by the official person of that client. The second important thing is working papers. Whatever job you're performing for your client, you carry out several tasks in the end. For example, if you're asked to do certifications, we'll be seeing some judgments also in later part of this presentation regarding certifications. If you see, the major liability on the chartered accountants have come due to certifications and wrongful certifications. For example, if the client is supposed to take the loan and he needs the approval of financial statements, he has to get the certificate from the client regarding his financial capability. He has to get the documents audited from the chartered accountant. So the certifications of chartered accountants play a major role whenever the client goes for financing from the banking institutions. And the banking institutions specifically rely on these certifications of chartered accountants while sanctioning the loan. And subsequently, what they do is, if something goes wrong, they first of all blame the chartered accountant. They say that we relied on the certifications given by chartered accountant, and if the client has subsequently failed to pay and he has defaulted, in that case, the chartered accountant should be held liable for this because he had wrongly certified the documents. So this is something which is very common is happening. So how to avoid this thing? To avoid this thing, we should have very detailed working papers available with us. What are working papers? Working papers tell us what we have done. Whatever task, suppose you ultimately submitted a report or you have issued any certificate to the client regarding his solvency. So if you issued the solvency certificate, then solvency certificate must be based on some documents, must be based on some returns or the previous annual returns which the client must submit to you. For example, if you have to consider the solvency certificate, then you will ask the client to give you the audited financial statements of previous years or the provisional financial statement of the present year. So these all documents are given to you by the client itself, and you are not authenticating these documents. What you are merely doing is that you are issuing a certificate of solvency on the basis of these documents which have been presented before you. So the certificate which you issue should clearly mention that I have come to this finding on the basis of documents presented before me. And I do not certify those documents. I merely certify this certificate which I have issued on the basis of those documents. The validity of those documents is not on me to prove. That is something which the client has to prove. So all these things should be available with you. Whenever you are preparing the report or certificate, the working paper should clearly mention that what you have checked. There should be a proper checklist that you have checked these annual returns, you have checked these financial statements, and all these should be kept in the client's file and readily available for you for entire period, for at least 5, 6, 7, 10 years till the time the loan is being continued. So the importance of working paper come during the allegations, when you can come to the authority and give them the working papers which you have made and tell them, see, whatever I have produced or whatever documents I have issued, certificate or any other document, that is based on these working papers, and I have applied my due diligence and reasonable intelligence. Because all the professionals, whether it be a doctor, whether it be an advocate, chartered accountant, we are also liable under our own specific statute. Under the statute of ICAI, these are disciplinary proceedings which can take place. So in the disciplinary proceedings also we can be held liable, if not in criminal proceedings. So how to avoid those disciplinary proceedings is also very important to be understood, because we have seen that several firms have been blacklisted, they have been suspended, their license have been suspended. Several chartered accountants have been suspended for 1 or 2 years. So that is done at the level of department, or I can say that is done at the level of the disciplinary committee of ICAI or the bar council at the case. So before these authorities, what we have to prove is that we have done everything as per our due diligence and reasonable prudence. I have not mistaken when it comes to performing my duties as a chartered accountant. If something wrong has been done, because that is the result of fraud being played by the client and not because of my negligence. If I am able to prove this aspect, I guarantee you that you cannot be held liable in any criminal proceeding and also in any departmental proceeding. The day you prove this fact before the authorities that you have not put any negligence, you have duly discharged your duties, and whatever wrongful act have come up, that is because of the fraud of the client, which is beyond your knowledge. I assure you that you cannot be held liable for anything wrong. So we have to check that we don't do any negligence, we don't intentionally get involved in any of the wrongful act. That's something which is to be seen. The third thing which is important to be kept in mind is that, as Parikh sir also pointed this out, that suppose if the client is doing anything wrong and that comes to your knowledge, then what you can do at max is intimate the client that this is something which is going wrong and kindly correct this. Otherwise, you will be subsequently liable under the various provisions of law. This is something which is a duty of the professional, and the professional should be very prompt in performing this duty. If the wrongful conduct of the client comes to your knowledge, you are duty bound to immediately inform the client regarding that wrongful conduct, and that exonerates you from your duties. If you have intimated him and told him this is wrong, kindly correct, you cannot be, you may be liable in future if you don't correct this. In that case, you have duly discharged your duties. Now it is rest on the client. If he does not do it, then you are not liable. The client is liable, let him suffer. Because you are a professional who is supposed to guide the client well, you are duty bound to intimate him. So always intimate the client, and I believe the intimation should be in writing, because that document will be required to you, with you to save yourself. At times we say that, okay, the client is very familiar to me and I've already advised him very thoroughly and I've told him regarding the wrongful things going on, and but that thing has not been given in writing. Subsequently, if department comes to me at later stage and says that your client has been doing wrong and you have been involved in all these things, what defense do I can simply say that no, I'm not involved in this. I intimated the client regarding this. But how will I prove this? Because oral evidence of the accused are never heard, because there's a presumption of wrongful act under the GST Act. If you see section 135 and 134, then there's a presumption of culpability. There's a presumption that you have committed wrong and you have to discharge that you have not committed wrong. So the onus has been shifted on the accused to prove that he is not guilty. So this is something which is very severe in nature, and to discharge such onus, we need to have documentary evidences. So if you advise the client regarding the wrongful act, kindly keep that in documentary form, and that document should be readily available with you whenever required. The fourth thing, all documents, returns, forms must be signed by the client. Don't trust client blindly and don't sign on his behalf. If any returns are to be filed, if any documents are to be submitted, then either take the electronic signature, digital signature, or the physical signature of the client, and only thereafter file those. Don't file those documents on your own signature. You should not authenticate those documents. The authentication should be done by the client. You are merely providing him services. As far as the authentication of a chartered accountant is concerned, that is done in the case of audit and not in filing of return. So filing of return is not the duty of a chartered accountant, though he may be assisting the client in doing it, but he is not responsible for doing it. So the client is supposed to sign it, and all the documentary conversations which take place with the department, kindly ensure that they take place through the client in the normal circumstances. The last thing is maintain proper records. Always try to maintain proper records. As I already told you, that whatever you do should be in the form of documentary evidences, which should be kept in a proper file. These are the 5 points which I think that all of us should be keep in mind while we're discharging official duties of our profession. Because if we keep all these things in mind, then we can surely reduce the possibility of implication in criminal liability to the minimum extent possible. I do not guarantee that this, if you do all these things, then you will be exonerated in any case. But I can just tell you that if you do this, then हम अपने आप को सिक्योर करने के लिए मैक्सिमम चीज कर रहे हैं. This is the only thing which we can do. If luck is hard, then no one can help. But we should not invite trouble. Inviting trouble is wrong thing. Avoiding trouble is smartness. So these five points are to avoid trouble, which we should keep in mind. Now, as far as the audit is concerned, there are 2 important points which are required to be kept in mind. Importance of MRL. Management representation letter. Whenever the chartered accountants are doing audits, they generally seek MRL from the client, wherein the client tell them the present status and whatever documents they're supplying to them. So if there is any limitation of audit, then kindly ask the client to mention it in the MRL, so that subsequently client or department may not come to you at later stage and said that you were supposed to check this and you have not done it. So kindly specify that very clearly in the MRL itself, that my duty is restricted to this. You say that all the documents which you are providing to me are correct and you have verified them. So the duty of the client should be there as far as the documents supplied by them are concerned. Duty of chartered accountant is concerned with the fact of checking these accounts, books of accounts or the financial statements, and coming out with the conclusion in the form of audit report. That requires application of acumen of chartered accountant, and that is something which is supposed to do. But he is not required to certify the financial statements made by the client or his accountant. That is something which is not a duty of the chartered accountant. And I'll explain. I'll tell you one judgment also on this point, in which the Supreme Court has said it, that the duty of chartered accountant is not to certify documents of the client. He is supposed to make his own report, and he is liable for his own report only and not otherwise. The second thing is audit qualifications and observations. See, at times we understand that in a practical scenario, if we want our client to give us the subsequent audit for this upcoming year, then we have to ensure that we don't put any negative observations against that client in the audit. So otherwise, the client would run away. But just with the fear of losing the client, we cannot do anything wrong. We should be very clear with our ethics of profession. And when we are auditing, the document audit report is signed by the chartered accountant, authenticated by a chartered accountant. So chartered accountant is liable for the document. He cannot shift duty on any other person. So whenever you are preparing audit report, kindly ensure that if there's any discrepancy which you see during the audit process, then kindly mention that. You are supposed to do two things. Kindly bring that to the notice of the client. If that is not corrected subsequently also, in that case, it is duty of the chartered accountant to mention that specifically in his audit observations. So that is something which a chartered accountant must do, and he should not surrender to the pressure of the client in any case, because surrendering to a pressure of the any association or business entity can render you in trouble at subsequent stage. So we don't want trouble. We want profit. We want money, but not the cost, not at the cost of trouble or being dragged into criminal conspiracy or criminal proceedings. So these things should be kept in mind by chartered accountants while performing their duties. This is what I can suggest. I think we have very expert people with us, and they have a lot more points to suggest on this. And I think we should always hear them once I complete this lecture. We should always invite their opinion on this point, sir. So I have told you what to do, what not to do. And whatever I've said is ultimately based on what the Honorable High Courts have been saying or the Honorable Supreme Courts have been saying. So now we'll be reading three important judgments. There in the coming 3 slides, you'll be seeing 3 important judgments coming from the Honorable High Courts, which are specifically dealing with chartered accountants and their criminal liability. In all these 3 cases, the chartered accountants were the accused and they were dragged into criminal proceedings. So what was held by the Honorable Courts in this case is very important to understand, to develop our mind in accordance to it. So the first judgment is Mahesh Agarwala versus Assistant Director. This is coming from Honorable Calcutta High Court. So the issue before if you see the second table, I have jotted down the issue which was there in this case. The issue before the Honorable Calcutta High Court was that in this case, the disciplinary committee of ICAI held that the CA is not liable and he was exonerated. As I have told you, that apart from criminal liabilities under the GST Act, IPC, income tax, the chartered accountant is required to face subsequent trouble in the form of disciplinary inquiry by the committee of ICAI, that is under section 22. So in this case, what happened was that the disciplinary committee exonerated the chartered accountant and held that the chartered accountant has not done anything wrong. So that was something which was favoring the chartered accountant. But the criminal proceedings were continued. So what were the allegations against the CA? The allegations pertain to false projected financial statements for client for obtaining the CC limit. As I have told you, in this case, the false projections were prepared by the chartered accountant for to allow his client to avail the CC limit from the bank. So the issue went before the Honorable Calcutta High Court that if I have been exonerated by the departmental proceedings or the disciplinary proceedings of ICAI, how can I be dragged into criminal litigation or criminal proceeding? Honorable High Court, what said is very important to understand. I'll read that specifically. Honorable High Court said, prosecution and the proceedings under the Chartered Accountants Act are completely different scope and arena of inquiry and adjudication. While the former involves a prosecution into allegations of conspiracy with public servant to misappropriate public funds of a bank, the latter is restricted to professional misconduct alone. The findings of disciplinary committee by no stretch of imagination can be said to be binding on criminal court, where the accusation is to be proved on the basis of evidences adduced before it in accordance with law. Moreover, the findings do not render the substratum of accusation of conspiracy between the petitioner and other accused persons in intending the unjustified financial assistance to the borrower in the instant case patently absurd or inherent improbable. So what the Honorable High Court said is that mere exoneration in departmental proceedings cannot be a ground for seeking acquittal or questioning of proceedings in the criminal proceedings when you have been charged for committing the fraud or preparation of forged documents. The allegations are different. The scope of inquiry is different. As I've told you that whenever it comes to the professional bodies, in the case of ICAI, Bar Council, ICSI, what they check is they check that whether you have duly discharged your professional duties in the terms of diligence which a chartered accountant is required to fulfill. But in the case of criminal proceedings, the scope is different. The scope is whether you have committed offense under any act like Indian Penal Code or otherwise. Now, it is very important to tell you here also that if we are dragged into any criminal proceeding, that is not restricted to particular proceeding. Kindly mind my words here. I am just specifically mentioning this to you. That, for example, if subsequently the department, this GST department finds a chartered accountant and group of people involved of evading 10 crore rupees GST. So they say that these people have committed the tax evasion of 10 crore rupees. This is, first of all, you will be implicated under section 132 of the GST Act, but that is not the end. The second entity which will come into picture is Enforcement Directorate for the purpose of PMLA. Because the day the GST department files a complaint against you before the magistrate court saying you have committed an offense for evasion of 10 crore rupees of GST, of 10 crore GST amount, in that case, it amounts to money laundering, because GST Act, Income Tax Act, Customs Act, they are scheduled offenses under the PMLA Act. So in that case, PMLA would come into picture and the ED would take over the complaint and would start investigating for the PMLA thing. And then you will further be harassed under the PMLA laws and you will be charged for money laundering also. So we have to make sure that it is not just restricted to departmental proceedings or the liability under the GST Act. PMLA may come in picture in the case of exports or the transactions of exports. The DRI may investigate the matter. So these all are in addition to what the tax authorities will be doing. Subsequently, if there is a case of banking fraud, in that case, the banking officials would be charged along with the chartered accountant. In that case, PC Act, Prevention of Corruption Act, would come into picture. So these offenses, Money Laundering Act, PC Act, DRI offenses, these are very severe offenses. These are serious offenses, economic offenses, crime. And the Honorable Supreme Court has taken a very stringent view on these offenses. You can read a judgment called Jagmohan Reddy, JS Reddy judgment coming from Honorable Supreme Court in 2013, in which the Honorable Supreme Court has laid down the importance of socio-economic crimes. And the Honorable Supreme Court said that the socio-economic crimes or the financial crimes are a class apart offenses. They are very serious in nature, and in these cases, bail should not be granted as a matter of routine. So the Honorable Supreme Court and High Court have been taken a very strict view when it comes to PMLA Act, when it comes to the offenses under the PC Act. So we should ensure that we should not be involved in these kind of hassle. And that can happen if we commit any willful negligence in any one act. If we have done any wrongful act under the GST, then that single act can attract all these provisions altogether in a single go. So a single mistake of a client can be of a chartered accountant or any professional can be disastrous for the entire career of that person. Coming back to this judgment which I was quoting to you regarding the prosecution, so the law stands settled that even if you have been exonerated by the departmental proceedings of the institution, in that case also the criminal proceedings can continue against you and you can be held liable under the criminal proceedings. So that's the first judgment. Now let's come to second important judgment. This is very important to understand the issue which Mr. Parikh pointed out initially. So the judgment is CA Rajesh versus Dugdadwala versus CA Rajesh v. Dugdadwala versus disciplinary committee. It comes from Honorable Gujarat High Court. The issue was that the CA was debarred for 1 year by the disciplinary committee of ICI, and he challenged the debarment. The allegations against that person was gross negligence and carelessness in certifying the tax audit reports, which did not reflect a true and fair picture of the affairs of the company. So the tax audit report were prepared wrongly, and it never brings out the true and correct picture of the department. I may correct it never brings out the true and correct picture of the financial status of the company. So what the Honorable High Court held in that case is very important. The Honorable High Court said Honorable High Court discussed in detail the duties of chartered accountant and what he's supposed to do. And the Honorable High Court in this ratio, in this 11th para, held that a chartered accountant has an obligation, not only statutory, but also moral and social, to be absolutely and completely diligent and cautious and careful while preparing, signing, certifying annual accounts and audit reports. So he's supposed to be very cautious, and he should be very diligent in performing these documents. What was further held is several government and private organizations and individuals rely on the report certificate issued by chartered accountants, and once a particular factual aspect or entries etc. are prepared, signed and certified by chartered accountant, they are ordinarily accepted without further probing or investigation. So this brings out the important duties of the chartered accountant and the importance of chartered accountant. Further, in such situation, the duty and obligation of being absolutely diligent, conscious and careful is multifold, manifold, and a chartered accountant should not and cannot take such obligation on performing his duties lightly or casually. A mistake by a petty clerk or lower level accountant may be dealt with in a different manner, but a mistake of chartered accountant cannot be treated with indifference or casually or lightly. What the Honorable Court further said is a mistake by a clerk or an accountant which may be considered or allowed or overlooked as inadvertent error cannot be overlooked lightly or casually while if committed by a practicing chartered accountant, more so when it is committed in annual report duly certified by him as correct and authenticated report. It has to be and should be dealt with with seriousness which it would deserve. So I agree that you may not like the observation of the Honorable Court, as it makes the chartered accountants liable for it. But we need to understand the framework of law, and we need to be cautious because of these positions of law. Because whenever the other side comes in, they'll rely on these kind of laws against you and say that, see, he's a chartered accountant, he's a qualified professional, and he was supposed to check these things, and he has not done it. So he'll be held liable in these cases. So kindly consider these kind of judgments wherein the duties of chartered accountants have been explained in very clear, crystal clear manner, and the Honorable Court have been very clear that if the chartered accountant has certified any document to be true and correct, in that case, his certification will be having far-reaching consequences, and is supposed to ensure that his certification is based on reasonable documentary verification. If that is done without documentary verification, then the chartered accountant is bound to be held liable. So the word of caution to you in the end, that whenever you are certifying any document, kindly check it, recheck it, and again check it before signing, because that is going in your name. Returns may be filed by the client, documents may be submitted by the client, but when it comes to submitting the reports, audit reports, then that is the onus of the chartered accountant, and it should be duly discharged with all diligence. Clerical mistakes can be avoided, but if there's a factual error which is not supported by documentary evidences, in that case, that may drag the chartered accountant into trouble, both in the criminal cases and also in the departmental inquiry also. So that's the second judgment which we have talked about. The last judgment which I will be talking about today is regarding the Commissioner of Income Tax Madras versus GM Dandekar. That is coming from Madras High Court. This is I think this will relax you after reading this very draconic judgment from the Honorable Gujarat High Court. I'll be reading this judgment from Madras High Court now, which somehow supports the argument which the chartered accountants have been making. So let's understand that also. In this case, the Honorable Madras High Court in 1953. So this is not a new issue. That is, this issue of duties of chartered accountant is an age-old phenomena, which is continuing from several decades, and not this on in this particular decade of GST. So in 1953 also, the Honorable Madras High Court was called upon to decide the duties of chartered accountants. And the issue was that to what extent chartered accountant is liable towards the income tax department. So the Honorable Madras High Court in that case held it that if a chartered accountant was auditing the accounts of a joint stock company, he is under a clear duty to probe into the transaction and report on their true character. But when the auditing relates to the accounts of individual, the auditor acts only for those individuals, and it is his duty to act on their instruction and to audit the accounts produced by them and prepare the statements for them. He is under an obligation to them to perform the auditing and with due skill and diligence. And if he does not, and if he does that, it is difficult to see what further obligation he has in matter and in favor of whom. The accountant is under a duty to prepare and present correct statement of accounts of the assessee, and he should of course neither suggest or assist in preparation of false accounts. But he is under no duty to investigate whether the accounts produced by the assessee are correct or not. So here it comes a set of sense of relaxation for the chartered accountant, which says that he is not under duty to investigate whether the accounts produced by the assessee are correct or not. That is a matter of the decision of the income tax tribunals. He is under no duty to department, and thereby accountant was not guilty for any misconduct which rendered himself unfit to a member of institute. So it is very clear that Honorable Court clearly held that the chartered accountant cannot be held liable for the documents or the accounts presented before him by the individual assessee. He cannot be held liable, provided that a chartered accountant does not suggest or advise the client to prepare any false documentation. So never advise the client to prepare false documentation, at least in documentary manner. It should not be on documents also, and I suggest it should not be otherwise also. But if there's a document which says that you have suggested any falsification of documents, in that case, no one can save you from trouble. You are inviting trouble at your own, and then you have to bear the consequences of the trouble which comes to your way subsequently. So this finding of the Honorable Court is somehow bringing down the duties of chartered accountants and restricting their duties to what they certify and not to what the client produced before them. Further, in this judgment itself, the Honorable Madras High Court also said, we agree that the position of chartered accountant presenting the income tax assessee is similar to that of advocate representing the parties in court, and that their obligations are similar to those advocates. But what are the obligations of the advocate? They are bound to act strictly within the instructions of their client. They are under a duty not to misrepresent facts or to mislead the court, and they should be no party in any manner to setting up the false reference, which they are under no obligation to suspect their client or to investigate whether their case is true or false. So I'm not supposed to investigate my client. I'm just supposed to ensure that if the client has given me some documents and he says the documents are correct, in that case, I can act further on those documents and discharge my duties under the law. Honorable High Court further said, it is a matter for the court to decide and not for the advocate to probe into. In like manner, the accountant is under a duty to prepare and present correct statement of the accounts of the assessee, and he should, of course, neither suggest or assist in the preparation of false accounts. So again, the word of caution is don't suggest or advise preparation of false accounts, and in any case, we should not be doing it. We should not prepare false documents, and we should not suggest preparation of false document to save from any liability. But he is under no duty to investigate whether accounts produced by the assessee are correct or not. That is a matter for the decision of income tax tribunal. Judge, by this standard, the question is whether respondent has said, so this is the finding of the court. So the Honorable High Court very clearly said that the duties of chartered accountants are restricted only to evaluating the documents produced before them, which they believe to be true and correct. And to believe that they are to be true and correct, I have just told you that take MRL from the client, take the undertaking from the client. That is something which can be done at your end, and that is done with to save yourself from any liability. I believe this sufficiently gives you the gist of in what cases the court would be willing to hold you liable. For the court would be willing to hold a chartered accountant liable for the offense, and it gives the pathway to you to follow in future. Because if you act in accordance of these principles laid down by the Honorable High Courts and Supreme Courts, I don't think the chartered accountant would be facing any trouble while discharging his duties as a professional, because chartered accountant is bound to certify documents. He is a certifying authority which have been empowered under law, so he will be doing it. In that case, if he has done it correctly, he should not be held liable subsequently because of the wrongful act of the client. That is the major concern which we are here for. Now, last thing, this is also a provision under the Income Tax Act, which talks about Section 271 of the Income Tax Act. Under the Income Tax Act, Section 271J, it says that under the income tax, the assessee needs to provide various reports, certificates which are authorized by the professionals like accountants, merchant bankers, registered valuer. In case any of the mentioned professional provide incorrect information in any of the report or certificate, the professional would be liable to pay the penalty under Section 271J of the Income Tax Act. So again, the professional have been duty bound under the Income Tax Act to not to furnish any incorrect information. Okay, so to the best of our ability, we should always check that we do not furnish any incorrect information and we do not certify or approve any incorrect document, because in that case, several provisions of law would come into picture one by one, and you will be dragged into a vicious cycle. Vicious cycle would come in, and it would be very difficult to come out of that cycle in a very normal manner. Last thing, apart from all these postings, I already told you that this ICAI Act specifically provides for mechanism for implicating the chartered accountants if they fail to perform their duties correctly. And disciplinary proceedings are there under the Act, and the disciplinary committee may take adequate action against the chartered accountants if they fail to perform their duties. Apart from this, there have been several other authorities in the form of SEBI and other authorities, which may also provide various restrictions on the duties of chartered accountants under the various laws like SEBI laws, like RBI norms and all these things. So all these things should be kept in mind whenever we are performing their duties. So with this, I conclude my presentation, and I'm open for any question if you have any. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mohit sir, for your wonderful session. It was a great session, and you take us through many provisions of the law, and has also discussed how we have to be careful while doing our certification work and all other certifications. So just I brief what the Mohit Khandelwal ji has said, that firstly he started with that criminal cases cannot be done, or I would like that for having a criminal case, there has to be a willful intention or a malified intention. Then only a criminal case can be done. And then he also said that arrest cannot be made merely on suspicion and before having any proper inquiry and investigation. And he also referred to Telangana High Court judgment, which is against CS, that it says that arrest can be done before assessment also, an inquiry. And he also referred interim Supreme Court judgment, where there is a liberal view against us, which is still an interim order. We hope that it gets in favor later on. And then Mohitji also focused majorly, and we should also take care about it, that we have to keep engagement letters, appointment letters, management representation letters, proper working papers we have to keep for our audit, assurance, and any other of certification work which we conduct. So I hope all the members and participants to take care of all these things and what Mohitji has explained in his presentation. So now moving forward, I request, there are some queries we have received.
Mohitji, please stop screen sharing option so that member can interact with you and Parikh sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, there is one query from C. Anil Agarwal sir. Yes, please sir.
Hello, am I audible, Kuldeep ji?
Yes sir, yes sir.
Kuldeep ji, first of all, Mohit Khandelwal ji, thank you for the nice presentation. Khandelwal ji, as Mr. Parekh has pointed out earlier, the basic intention of the government is not to harass taxpayers or to the chartered accountants or advocates. The case, as you said, will only be possible when there is certain type of connivance in fraud or forgery or something like that. But the point here is that the misuse of power by the officers, that is the basic problem. The problem is not that the professional is taking due care and due diligence. The problem here is the misuse of power by the officers. So the question which I wish to know, is there any law or any provision under which we can sue the officer also for for performing the functions apart, but for going beyond their duties, for performing or taking action beyond their powers or misusing their powers? Just a minute, I want to point out a case of recently of Metnier Corporation, Noida, in which Allahabad High Court has decided that the assessee will suffer only a penalty of rupees 10,000, which was earlier levied by the department to 30 crores and seizing its good. And in this whole period, 3 years of the business is being wasted. So the point here is there anything for a assessee or for a professional to ask the officer if he goes beyond its duties or misuses his powers? Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I'm audible. So the screen is being shared. I have already stopped screen sharing.
Yes, sir. The screen is not shared. Okay.
Yes, sir. So, sir, your the query is very genuine. Unless I've got a point in that regard, I'll tell you that under the IPC, there are provisions for punishment of wrongful exercise of powers by the official persons. If any government servant is misusing his powers and traveling beyond his powers, in that case, the criminal complaint can be filed against that person. There are sections like 167, 168 of the IPC, which provides for punishment of any misuse of powers by the government servant while performing his official duties. So you're always free to file a complaint against that person before the criminal court. It's a non-cognizable offense, and you can file the complaint before the honorable concerned magistrate against such person. Also, regarding your query, this is a major cause of concern, that how will you restrict the powers of the officer under section 69? He may harass, he may create inordinate pressure. So in that regard, one recent judgment of Honorable Gujarat High Court, which I really mentioned also, is very important, in which the Honorable Gujarat High Court said that though you have been given powers, and the powers are very wide, but it should not be misused. You cannot misuse those powers to create inordinate pressure on any person. So that finding has specifically come from the Gujarat High Court, and the Gujarat High Court has clearly said that you can go to the extent of arrest only when you have sufficient reasons, and that should be recorded in writing. The reasons should be very clear, and you should record that in writing. Only thereafter you can go to the extent of arrest, otherwise not. So since the GST law is in development stage, you will see that the powers under 69 would face several checks and balances. So आपने एक बहुत अच्छा point पूछा, जिसमें और clarify कर दूं, which we should know obviously as a chartered accountant also, and also to advise our clients, that criminal law में दो important provisions हैं. एक है section 41A of CRPC. शायद आप लोगों ने सुना भी होगा. Let me tell you what is 41A. 41A, 41 capital A I'm talking about, it says that in the cases where the offense is punishable with less than 7 years, in offenses में investigating officer की duty है कि वो पहले एक notice देगा. He will give a notice to the accused person explaining the allegations against him and seek his justification. He cannot directly go for arrest in the case of the offenses which are punishable with less than 7 years, just like GST offenses. तो GST में उनकी ड्यूटी है कि 41A की कंप्लायंस आपको करनी पड़ेगी. 41A में आप नोटिस देंगे अक्यूज को, उससे जस्टिफिकेशन सीख करेंगे. Only if you are not satisfied with the justification, in that case you can go ahead, otherwise not. ठीक है सर. तो जब भी if someone is saying you can always enforce your powers under section 41A and ask that official to give you notice. क्या आप नोटिस दो, मैं जवाब दूंगा. अगर आप कहते हो मैंने किया तो बिकॉज द पनिशमेंट इज फॉर लेस देन 7 years, ऑल दी जीएसटी ऑफिसर मैक्सिमम पनिशमेंट इज 5 years, तो उन सब में उनको 41A कंप्लायंस करना जरूरी है, और ये भी ऑनरेबल गुजरात हाईकोर्ट, पंजाब हाईकोर्ट ने क्लियरली कर दिया है. सो इफ यू फेस एनी इशू रिगार्डिंग दिस, kindly ask that officer in writing that this is an offense punishable with the punishment of less than 7 years. Kindly give me a notice in writing. I'll respond to it. So these are checks and balances which are there in law, and if we are vigilant about these checks and balances, then we can use them very prudently and save ourselves from any unlawful harassment. Am I clear, sir? Also, sir, एक लास्ट पॉइंट, एक डीके बसु नाम की जजमेंट है ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट का. डीके बसु में ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बहुत डिटेल्ड गाइडलाइंस दी थी कि कैसे पुलिस अरेस्ट के दौरान अपने पावर्स को यूज करेगी, हाउ द पुलिस शुड नॉट मिसयूज देयर पावर्स. So detailed guidelines were issued by the Honorable Supreme Court in DK Basu case, and those guidelines have been asked to be applied in the cases of arrest under GST also. So ये सब कुछ for the benefit of assessee है, for the benefit of professionals है, so that the officer cannot misuse his powers. I think I've answered your question, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mohit sir, we have also have one question from one member on the chat box. I would like to ask on this behalf.
Yes,
He
sir.
has asked that what precaution should CFO level CA to do avoid to should take? What precaution CFO level CA should take to avoid getting in trouble with the department?
So basically, the chartered accountant is acting as CFO.
Many members are engaged as CFOs in corporate sector.
Correct.
So what the precaution they should take why so that they do not get in trouble with the department?
See, basically, when you are acting as a CFO, so you are handling the entire financial states. You are handling the entire financial affair of that particular company, and you are the head of the financial affairs of that particular company. So the liability of a CFO is very wide. In that case, the CFO is liable not just for the documentation of the company, but also for documents which are supplied outside. So CFO should always ensure that proper accounts are maintained, and the accounting department keeps record of everything which is there. Okay, and whatever documents they're supplying for the purpose of audit and all these things, that should also be very thoroughly examined. CFO की ड्यूटी दोनों पार्ट पे है सर. CFO की ड्यूटी इंटरनल डॉक्यूमेंट्स देखने में भी है, and also to ensure that audits and all requirements are duly complied with. So in this case, जैसे मैंने कहा था, CFO should always ensure that working papers are available. Whatever requirements were required to be complied with, you should always have a checklist with you that the company is required to comply with these legal provisions, and you should advise your staff to follow this checklist every month or as per the requirement. And these checklists should be followed very clearly, and the CFO should ensure the compliance of those checklists made by him. So essentially, to advise your staff, best approach is make a checklist, give it to them, ask them to comply, and ensure the compliance of the same. And rest all 5 principles we have discussed equally applies in the case of CFO also. Am I clear, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the response. I hope the concerned person who have raised the query might have get their reply. So moving forward, सर एक जनरल क्वेरी है, मैं भी पूछ सकता हूँ?
Yes, sir.
सर हम लोग प्रैक्टिस करते हैं.
Yes, sir.
हम लोग जैसे रिटर्न बढ़ते हैं, लेकिन आजकल हम देखते हैं कि पब्लिक मीडिया में और प्रेस रिलीज के थ्रू बहुत फेक इनवॉइसेस और पोज के रैकेट पकड़ में आते हैं. तो हम जब रिटर्न बढ़ते हैं तो हमको असेसी डेटा भेजता है नॉर्मली, एंड वी डू, हम गुड फेथ में उसका काम करते हैं. वी डोंट नो कि वेदर उसमें जो इनपुट ले रहा है या उनका इनपुट डॉक्यूमेंट है वो फेक है या नहीं है. बेसिकली उसके पास प्रॉपर टैक्स इनवॉइस होता है, पार्टी सामने वाली रिटर्न भी भरती है, GSTR 2A में भी आ जाता है, हम सब ले लेते हैं. बट लेटर ऑन इफ सपोज दैट come as a fake invoice or forged invoice, so what are the liability of a CA in general terms who is doing the work in good faith and is relying on those documents?
जी सर. सर इसमें मैं वही समझा रहा था कि as far as the filing of returns are concerned, that is the prerogative of the client. आप सिर्फ उसकी हेल्प कर रहे हैं, ये आपकी ड्यूटी नहीं है. ठीक है. अब हम खुद को कैसे सिक्योर कर सकते हैं? सपोज डेटा, if you are filing return for any client, then he'll supposed to supply you data for that. Okay, so जो डेटा आप उससे ले वो थ्रू मेल कम्युनिकेशन, आजकल मेल पे आते डेटा, सो इट्स ऑलवेज एडवाइजेबल कि आप उनको मेल पे ले, सो यू सो बिकॉज दैट इज द एक्नॉलेजमेंट ऑफ रिसिप्ट ऑफ डेटा. अगर उसने आपको डेटा भेजा है एंड यू हैव द रिसिप्ट ऑफ द सेम, यू कैन से दिस इज व्हाट ही हैज सेंट. और इट इज ऑल्सो एडवाइजेबल कि आप एक मेल उनको हमेशा कर दें that we are filing the return believing that all the data which you have supplied to you are true and correct, and we are not required to verify the data, and where our duty is mainly restricted to filing the return. आप इसका से बता दीजिए, मैं बताया तो आपको, जो क्लाइंट जेन्युइन है वो कभी इस मेल से नाराज नहीं होगा. If a client is acting genuinely and he's sending you genuine data, and if you send him this 2-liner mail and ask him to kindly keep that for record, he would never take it otherwise, because if he's supplying valid data, it is just you are taking up due precaution under law. Okay, अगर कोई client wrongful act कर रहा है, he will object to it. So that's a checkpoint for you. Okay sir, because if the client says आपने मुझे मेल कैसे भेज दिया, ऐसा आपने मेल भेजा खुद की सिक्योरिटी के लिए, that will come as a key document for you at the later stage. Subsequently, अगर कुछ गलत काम, if the invoices are fake and the fake invoices have been used by the client and the investigation starts, तो आप ये डॉक्यूमेंट प्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं. Because the best thing for the chartered accountant is कि आप बेनिफिशियरी नहीं है, आपके पास कोई इलिसिट आईटीसी नहीं है, आपने कोई भी आईटीसी यूज नहीं किया और आपने कोई भी फंड डिराइव नहीं किया. आपके पास जो आया वो लीगल, आपका जो फी है वो आया है, एंड नॉट मोर देन दैट. ठीक है, तो इट्स ऑलवेज एडवाइजेबल टू टेक द फी आल्सो टू द बैंक अकाउंट इफ पॉसिबल. तो उससे भी क्या, इट ऑलवेज कीप द ट्रैक कि सर मैंने तो अपनी अकाउंट रिटर्न फाइल की थी, इतनी फीस ली है, दैट्स ऑन रिकॉर्ड, सो चेक माय बैंक स्टेटमेंट. So in that case, you are financially secured, you are legally secured, and if there's any foul play on the part of client, then you will be able to get to know about it at a very earlier stage, जिससे पहले वो आगे बढ़े. क्योंकि अगर आप क्लाइंट को ऐसा मेल करते हैं और क्लाइंट गलत है, तो वो ऑब्जेक्ट करेगा, और नहीं करता तो it goes well for you and you have discharged your duties well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes sir, thank you.
So I thank Mohit Khandelwal ji for this wonderful session he has taken, queries that he has resolved and replied for many. Now moving forward, I request CA Kuldeep Yadav ji, Kuldeep Gupta ji, sorry, Secretary Jaipur branch, to kindly give his remarks on this session. Thank you.
थैंक यू सो मच मयंक जी. एंड आज का जो टॉपिक रहा वो कुछ ऐसा कंट्रोवर्शियल था, और रेगुलरली जो न्यूज़पेपर मीडिया हमेशा इसमें डिस्कशन होता था. लास्ट वीक जब मैं मोहित खंडेलवाल जी से मिला तो हमने ये डिस्कशन किया कि कुछ ऐसा टॉपिक होना चाहिए. अभी तक जीएसटी, नॉर्मल रिटर्न, कंप्लेंसेस, इन सब पे बात होती थी, फेक इन्वॉइसेस सेशन होता था, बट हाउ टू ओवरकम ऑफ दीज डिफिकल्टीज, दीज ट्रबल्स, तो उस पर कैसे डील हो, उन सब चीज़ों को लेकर ये पूरा सेशन रखा गया. उसमें इनकम टैक्स एंड जीएसटी एंड इवन जो सीएस पे जो डिसिप्लिनरी एक्शन जो भी होते हैं उनके फर्दर जो हाई कोर्ट या सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जो भी डिसीजन होते हैं किसी भी बैंक से, उन सबको भी डिस्कशन किया गया. क्योंकि मेंबर्स का रेगुलरली ये हमारा सजेशन होता था कि सर आपने इशू तो आप हमें बताते हो कि सपोज फेक इन्वॉइसेस हो रहे हैं, आईटीसी बोगस आईटीसी पे हो रहे हैं, ये आपके लिए ट्रेबल है, बट हाउ टू रिड्यूस दैट पर्टिकुलर इशूज. तो ये सब चीज को देख के हमने ये वाला टॉपिक किया, और डेफिनेटली मोहित खंडेलवाल जी ने इस सेशन पे बहुत अच्छा डिलीवरेशन दिया. मेंबर्स के मैसेजेस मैं भी देख पा रहा हूँ यहाँ चैट बॉक्स में पर्सनली कि उनको लगा कि बहुत ही इनडेप्थ था. और मैं रिक्वेस्ट भी करूंगा कि सर से कि अपनी पीपीटी भी शेयर कर दें, जिससे हम ब्रांच की वेबसाइट पे जो मेंबर जिनको रिक्वायरमेंट है उनके साथ शेयर कर सकें. और एक चीज मैं सेशन का मतलब कंक्लूड करने से पहले मैं मेंबर से रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूंगा कि जिन मेंबर्स ने अपनी सीपीआर के लिए अभी तक अपनी नाम और मेंबरशिप नंबर चैट बॉक्स में नहीं मेंशन किया है, प्लीज वो मेंशन कर दे. अंटिल अनलेस कि आप अपना नाम और मेंबरशिप नंबर मेंशन नहीं करेंगे, सीपी क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगी और बाद में अपडेट भी नहीं हो पाएगी. तो इसलिए रिक्वेस्ट है मेंबर से कि आप अपना सीपीआर अपडेशन के लिए डिटेल्स आप चैट बॉक्स में शेयर कर दें. एंड थैंक्स टू पीपी पारिक सर, आर गुरु. एंड जैसा कि पूरे सेशन में जिनका सर का एड्रेस रहा, वो हमेशा एक चीज जो मुझे समझ में आती थी 2010 में जब डे 1 पे जब मेरा इंट्रोडक्शन हुआ था, इंट्रोडक्शन तो क्या मेरे लिए तो फायर बोल था उस दिन, और उन्होंने एक ही चीज मुझे बताई थी कि रेस्पेक्ट इज कमांडेड, नो डिमांडेड. एंड दिस इज द राइट टाइम कि जब अपने प्रोफेशन को, अपने जो भी अपना एक्टिविटी है, हम ये नहीं करेंगे हमें कोई भी जो अपनी बियॉन्ड कैपेसिटी है, बियॉन्ड पावर अपन जैसे कोई बात करें, बट जिसके लिए हम हकदार हैं उसके लिए तो एटलीस्ट वही रेट करें। और अपने क्लाइंट से आप भले ही काम अगर 10 आपके पास ऑडिट से, आपके पास 100 ऑडिट से, तो आप उसको 40 कर दे, 60 कर दे, बट अपनी परसेंटेज वाइज आप उसका 60% काम पे आ जाए। बट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन जो पार्ट है उसको आप अपना प्रॉपर करें, केयर करें, क्योंकि आने वाला टाइम डिजिटाइजेशन का है। और कोई भी चीज ये नहीं हो सकता कि जैसे कुछ साल पहले अपन सोच सकते थे या होता होगा, अपन मैं ये कह सकता हूँ कि बैक एंड पे जाके कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट चेंज हो गए या अपना कुछ भी एक होता था ना कि अपनी एडजस्टमेंट हो गई, फेस की वैल्यू खत्म हो गई है। तो फेस वैल्यू जहाँ पे खत्म हो गई और फेस लेस का जो एक माहौल आ गया है, उनमें ये सब चीजें बंद हो चुकी होगी या बहुत मिनिमम हो चुकी होगी कि अपन कुछ कर लेंगे या कुछ हो जाएगा। तो इसलिए सभी मेंबर्स से रिक्वेस्ट है कि जो भी अपना प्रोफेशनल असाइनमेंट है विद ड्यू केयर वो अपना एक्सेप्ट करें, उसको परफॉर्म करें एंड ड्यू डिलीजेंस के साथ अपना काम कंप्लीट करें। एंड ऑल्सो थैंक टू आर स्पीकर मोहित खानदेलवाल जी। जैसा मैंने बताया आपका डिलीवरेशन बहुत शानदार रहा, तो हम उसके लिए जयपुर ब्रांच की तरफ से आपका तहे दिल से शुक्रिया। एंड लास्ट बट नॉट लीस्ट आर टुडेज मॉडरेटर ये मयंक श्रीवास्तव जी, जिन्होंने बड़ा ही एक्टिवली पूरे प्रोग्राम को, सेशन को मॉडरेट किया और पूरा मोमेंटम बनाए रखा पूरी क्वेरीज के साथ। तो थैंक यू सो मच एंड थैंक यू ऑल द व्यूअर्स। लास्ट में मैं पारिक सर से रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूंगा कि अगर लास्ट में अगर कुछ 2 वर्ड्स अगर आपकी तरफ से अगर कुछ हो जाए तो सर बढ़िया हो जाए सर हमारे सबके लिए, प्लीज पारिक सर। पारिक सर प्लीज अनम्यूट सर। एडमिन प्लीज अनम्यूट पारिक सर। यस
Hello.
यस सर।
Yeah. At the outset, I'm thankful to the chairman and secretary for giving me this opportunity to express my views. But it was a fantastic, I should say, deliberation, and we are thankful to Advocate Sahab, who has given such a fantastic and detailed suggestions how to save ourselves from the torture of the authorities. As I always believe that whatever you do, you should, like Sir Advocate Saab has said, that ki you should take a letter or should send a negative confirmation, जिसको अपन बोलते हैं, वो हमेशा अपने क्लाइंट से लेनी चाहिए। तो आई जनरली टेल वन जोक कि एक बनिया अपने, एक बुरा मत मानना, गुप्ता जो बनिया ज्यादा है उसमें बिकॉज ज्यादा है वो, तो उसे बुरा मत मानना। तो उसने कहा कि पिताजी मेरे को बिजनेस करने के लिए क्या चीज सीखनी है। उसने कहा चल ऊपर, वो उसको कहा कि तू ऊपर छत पे जा। वो ऊपर छत पे गया, उसने कहा कूद जा, मैं तेरे को पकड़ लूंगा। उसने कहा सर अगर आप नहीं पकड़ पाए तो मेरी टांग टूट जाएगी, कुछ चिंता मत कर, मैं तेरे को पकड़ लूंगा। बहुत करने के बाद बच्चा कूद गया, और जब कूदा तो पिताजी ने उसको पकड़ा नहीं, तो उसकी टांग के लग गई। तो उसने कहा पिताजी मैंने आपको कहा था कि आप नहीं पकड़ोगे तो मेरे लग जाएगी। तो उसने कहा बेटा मेरे को तेरे को बिजनेस के रूल सिखाने थे कि बिजनेस में बाप पे भी विश्वास नहीं करना चाहिए। तो सो व्हाट आई वांट टू टेल यू इज दिस कि जो ये अपना प्रोफेशन है और जिस तरीके की रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अपने ऊपर कास्ट की जा रही है डे बाय डे, and it has been shown as if for all the economic offenses chartered accountants are only responsible. इस इमेज को खत्म करने के लिए अपने को अपना डॉक्यूमेंटेशन और अपनी स्ट्रेंथ गवर्नमेंट के अंदर इतनी बनानी पड़ेगी कि इस इमेज को खत्म करें। और ये इमेज जब ही बनेगी जब अपन अपने आप में सच्चाई से काम करेंगे। होता हर समाज के अंदर माइनॉरिटी होती है, छोटे मोटे लोग होते हैं जो गलत काम करते हैं, लेकिन पूरा कौम बदनाम हो जाती है। तो जो भी अपने दोस्त लोग हैं जो फेयर डील नहीं कर रहे हैं, वी शुड काउंसिल देम टू डू द राइट थिंग्स, so the image of profession and the respect of the common person towards the profession goes manifold high. If we will not improve, the government like is saying ki we will do this, we will do that, this is nothing, because first of all we are not united, we are weak in our representation politically. Because अगर आप assembly या लोकसभा देखो तो उसमें बहुत सारे MPs और MLAs होते हैं जो एडवोकेट होते हैं। मेरे को मुश्किल से 2 एक चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट कोई MP और MLA बन जाता है तो अपन ऐसे कूदते हैं जिसकी भाई बहुत बड़ी चीज कर ली है। So we should be also be more social. We should interact. We should raise our voices, and we should be united to oppose anything which is not acceptable to a normal person who respects his own entity. Doubting the profession is the worst thing. I can give a big lecture, but this is not the time. I thank you once again for giving me this opportunity, and I am very proud of the young team of Jaipur branch who is doing fantastic work. I can only say that God bless you all, and we elder, or after I have completed 60, so now to my Buddha bhi ho gaya hu, so now I can enjoy the hearing from the youngsters one. With these words, I thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.